Begging is not permitted in Beverly Hills. BAPS is up next on Rediscovered Movies. Hello, welcome to an episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo Malloy. So today I have a special guest on the pod, so please welcome Amy Jane,
Hello.
or Jane.
Hi.
Hey, so it is glad to have you here today. So this one's going to be an exciting one to talk about. So we will be discussing BAPS. BAPS is a 1997 comedy film. It is directed by Robert Townsend, who's known for films such as Hollywood Shuffle, which I've done previously on the podcast, and Meteor Man. The film is written by Troy Bayer, who's known for films such as Love Don't Cost a Thing and Let's Talk About Sex. The film stars Halle Berry, Natalie Desselle, and Martin Landau. So here's the synopsis from Google. Waitresses at a Georgia restaurant, Niecy and Mickey, decide to fly to Los Angeles for a music video audition in order to raise money for their dream project, a business that combines soul food dining with a hair salon. Circumstances eventually find the Southern ladies on the estate of Mr. Blakemore, an elderly millionaire. Despite their vast cultural differences, Niecy and Mickey form close bonds with Blakemore and his butler. So the film was released in theaters on March 28th, 1997. It has a $10 million budget. It made about $7.2 million. It opened at number 9 with 2.7 million. It was beaten by films including Liar Liar, The Devil's Own, Selena, and the re-release of Star Wars Return of the Jedi. In terms of reception, Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 15% critic score and a 67% audience score. It also has a B Cinema score. So Halle Berry received two nominations, which were Worst Actress for the Stinker Bad Movie Awards and Best Actress for the Acapulco Black Film Festival. So this movie is available on demand, so check your local provider. So, all right, we could get into first discoveries. So, Amy, you want to start?
Yeah, you actually requested for me to watch it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just first of all, I'm like, Babs, what is this? Like, what is this movie? I searched it up, saw the cover of the movie, like the poster. I'm like, what is Numphy sending me? And so I'm like, okay, let me start it. I started watching it. I'm like, oh, I have seen this, but like years back. And when I was watching it now, to be honest, I don't know if I was tired, fatigue, or whatever. I did sleep through most of it, woke up, rewind, and then try to finish it. But overall, I don't know, it was a little bit boring now watching it. But I think back then I might have liked it because it does have some quirks, some good comedy in between. But I don't know. It was all right. It was good to see Halle Berry like on screen, like when she was younger, but I don't know. It was a little bit kind of like a misconception about the movie a bit. Like because I was thinking, "Oh, this is going to be great. It looks cool." And then the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
intro, you see like 8-inch fingernails and big hair, and I was like, "Okay, what is this? What stereotype are we doing here right now?" But yeah.
Yeah. Because for me, like, I had the VHS tape growing up,
Hmm.
so I don't remember my initial
Yeah.
thoughts because I was young when I first saw
Hmm.
this. But I would say, like, it's an enjoyable movie, and certainly for me, it's one of those movies where you probably enjoyed it as a kid, but when you grow
Yeah,
up, you definitely notice the
exactly.
flaws, and there are a lot of flaws in this movie. But however, I do find like I enjoyed the comedy for this movie. I thought the main actresses, Halle Berry and Natalie
Hmm.
Desselle, they work and have obviously have great chemistry and all that stuff. So Yeah, I say it's quite an enjoyable movie, and I guess it's no surprise that many people consider it to be a cult classic
Yeah.
movie. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think Natalie Mickey, the character that played Hallie's best friend or partner or something, she really did her part in getting that comedy out there. But I think the rest
mm-hmm,
of the cast kind of like overdid it. Like, I don't know, overacting, or maybe it's just the plot or how it was. But to me, I felt like Holly was just putting a lot more into it than her previous movies now, like in later on. But yeah.
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. So we could get into the
Yeah, for
highlights,
sure.
essentially what we liked about this movie. Because, like I said, I enjoyed the comedy.
Hmm.
Because, like you mentioned, the 8 feet long
I know. Oh my
fingernails. Because,
gosh. I was like, what is this?
like you just,
And dealing with
yeah, because
and they in the restaurant
with
too. I was like,
food,
oh my gosh.
yeah. Yeah. And you just hope that the fingernails are
Yeah.
sanitary because we all,
Although you do,
because we all,
I wouldn't even complain about that because I know like even modern day right now, you have people still doing those long nails and stuff. I still don't know how they do any
Mhm.
work, but those girls made it too.
Yeah. Yeah, or how are you supposed to grab stuff
True.
too? Like with the
Yeah.
nails, it's something. And also on top of that, with the exaggerated
Yes.
hairstyles, because you might think, oh, like this is outrageous, but at the same time, it's a work of
Yeah.
art.
It's yeah, you see both worlds. Like you're like, okay, what is this? What's going on? But I'm like, well, that is actually amazing for someone to do all that hairstyle. Although it would take forever, knowing like blacks and all that stuff
Hmm.
with our hair and already. But yeah, it takes
Yeah.
skills for sure.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite hairstyle from the
Um,
movie?
I will say, even though it was a little bit rude of them to have that big hair in the on the plane, but I just love the
Yeah.
wow or powwow or whatever she had on her hair just to support. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's such a great friend right there. Just having like a cheerleading like
Hmm.
saying that will I'll say those two will
Yeah.
be my go-to like my favorite hair during the movie. But yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on
Hmm.
that one because like with Mickey with her
Hey, booyah,
booyah
yeah,
like
that was the one.
hairstyle,
Yeah.
yeah, like that is just like
Hmm.
hilarious too. And yeah, like it was just like hilarious that with the plane sequence that the
Yes.
stewardess like she told them
Lower.
to lower
Yeah.
their hair, but it's like it's excellent,
Yeah,
it's beautiful at the
exactly.
same time.
And it was just funny how they just started sliding down. I'm like, that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, like, yeah, it does have nice like moments of comedy. Like
Hmm.
for example, like when they're at the gold tooth
Oh
bar,
my God.
there with that whole sequence with when they meet the
Yeah,
guys, like they obviously failed to
I
pay the
know.
drinks twice.
I was actually gonna say that too. I'm like, that was pure comedy because even now, like, it's the stare that they did for both sides, and it's like, aren't you guys gonna
Hmm.
pay? And they're like, but it's you guys already got in for free, so you should pay. I'm like, it's the typical guys, like, why would we spending money when you already got in
Yeah.
for free, right? But that was comedy gold
Hmm.
right there. That was actually really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt sorry for the
Yes,
bartender
yes,
because you saw like at the end like he was just tired of
yeah,
bringing like the drinks back and then he has to put it back
true.
in.
And then the fact that their boyfriends did the same thing, I was like, really, dudes? They were expected. They're like, oh, don't worry, they got it. They got it. And they did the same thing. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah. And I thought too like with Manley, the butler,
Hmm.
he's very serious with his
Yes,
delivery.
yeah,
Like particularly when they first meet him, uh he's so like
yeah,
serious. He's like, "Wait in there." It's like the name is
yeah,
Manley, not Alfred.
true. The first time he came on scene, I thought because of his mannerism, I was like, oh, he looks strict. He looked a
Hmm.
little bit like judgmental, of course, with the way the girls are what they're wearing. That's not what
Yeah.
LA or whatever they used to, right? So he just assumed like, oh, these
Yeah.
people are definitely in the wrong house. But the shock in his on
Hmm.
his face when the guy's like, "Oh, you guys are here." He's like, "You actually know these girls? Like, what is going on?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely leans towards like the stereotypes with how
Yeah.
butlers are usually portrayed on screen, because usually, oh, like they're
Hmm.
serious, they're
Yes,
British.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, it's hilarious. And also too, like every time when Nisi tries to make up something about Lily to
Yeah.
Mr. B, like I thought that was
Yeah.
hilarious as
I was like,
well.
"Oh no, girl, stop it." And I love
Yeah,
the cultural
absolutely.
when they include like the soul food and trying to improve, like trying to
Hmm.
get him to eat and be happy. I was like, poor guy is
Yeah.
already sick, but like the food you're making, yes, it's good and all, but wouldn't this be killing him
Hmm.
early or something? But yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even though, like, yeah, it is a comedy
Hmm.
movie, it does have its heartfelt
Yes.
moments. An example, like, would be when, let's say, when Mr. B and Nisi, they're at the limo. This is after the
Oh
nightclub
yes.
sequence
Yeah.
towards the end. Yeah, when they're talking about, like, her boyfriend, Ali, having lack of
Yeah.
ambition, which I have a lot more to say for that in the
Hmm.
lowlights section for
Yeah.
me. But I guess that was a nice moment where they have like a heart to heart.
Yeah, I actually also like that Mr. Blackmore, even though at later on in the movie you realize that he was not really tricked or fooled the um by the girls. It's the idea of that he still allowed them to spend weeks with him. He took them shopping, like that was very good of him. Like you would not expect someone of that status to say, "Oh yeah, bring them over." Like the first thing when people find out someone is like lying to them, they will be calling the cops or something, right? But he actually just said,
Yeah,
"You know what? I'm enjoying my time with them. Let them stay." And he just like went along with it. Yeah.
yeah. I'll expand more on that in the low
Yeah.
light section, but yeah. And also too, there was a moment when Manly overhears the girls talking about a soap opera, and then he decides to chime in,
Mhm.
which was
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
because I guess there we start to see him connecting more
yeah.
with the girls, because that was nice
Yeah,
to
that was
see.
actually really great. I was shocked that he actually knew what they were talking about, but that was very nice. Yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess also like
Absolutely.
the cliche bathroom scene, which actually that was the only time, I feel like not the only time, but it actually showed like Halle Berry's type of comedy. Like she was a little bit funny in that scene, but at the end too,
Yeah.
it's so cliche that like you will laugh. I bet like back then I laughed, but now it's like, okay, we get it. You can turn it off. Just press, but it had some quirks for sure.
Yeah, that was a hilarious
Yeah.
scene because I'm sure for me, like for the first time, I wouldn't know like which. I know, like obviously, like the first toilet
Hmm.
you use, but then I think the other toilet is meant to be a
Yeah, it was a
bidet.
bidet, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I bet nowadays they probably like combine the two into one
Hmm.
toilet as opposed to
Too,
two.
yeah. And I feel like now
Yeah,
everybody knows about a bidet because of so many movies that have done that comedy scene where it's like poor girls or people coming into a rich household. It's like, oh, what is this? And they're so surprised about what to do. And the whole idea of her
yeah.
sliding in that rubber outfit, like I felt bad for her in a way, but it was funny, it was funny.
Absolutely. And also too, I guess if we're gonna talk about
Hmm.
scenes, I think you mentioned briefly, like with the soul food. I love that whole montage with Mickey
Yes,
cooking
yeah,
in the kitchen because clearly she's in her
true,
element.
yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, I thought yeah that was a good scene along with the music, because I think the music sounds familiar. I can't
Yeah.
place the name of it,
The
but
music did sound familiar. I'm like, what I can't remember. It came out around that time, but like I don't know. It did sound very
mm-hmm,
familiar. It was good music too.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely.
speaking about
And
music, sorry. It's another scene was when they sent the butler out to to get music,
Yeah.
and the way the guy's like, "Oh, classics are at the back," and then when he told him his list, was like, "Oh, you get down like that." That was funny. I was like, "Oh, that was actually hilarious."
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna mention that scene. Yeah, that was a hilarious scene, and the fact that with the employee is listening to
Yes, yeah,
headphones at work,
true.
which I which would not be possible
Yeah,
like in real life because I have been to record stores
yep,
because they always play music so
true.
loud. So
Yeah.
that yeah, that was a hilarious scene.
Hmm.
Because also too, I liked when they did the shopping montage where they went to
Yeah,
different
yeah.
stores for
Hmm.
shopping. So that was cool because also you get to see different parts of Beverly
Feels, yeah,
Hills and all that stuff. So
yeah.
that was
And I
a
also
cool
liked
scene.
the idea, the whole movie itself. Like, I found out later that was created by a black woman, I believe. And so it was an all black movie. So I guess back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
like in the time when it came out, a lot of people of color would have loved seeing that because it was an all black cast. The leads were black, and like although like of course Mr. Blackmore, like he was the second lead or whatever, but the idea of them having an all black cast, I feel like back then people would have been excited about that. Like, oh my gosh, I can actually
Mm-hmm.
see people of color on TV and all that stuff. I don't know how it was, but overall, like when I watched it, I'm like, oh, this is actually more than usual that you see in movies, you know? The typical one. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was really nice. And the story, like the moral of the story, even though it was kind of hidden at the end, but like the end of the movie, you kind of got like a whole summary of what it was about, you know? Hmm.
Absolutely, because definitely this movie has a great cultural significance, particularly for, I guess, Black
Yeah.
Hollywood, if you would call it
Yeah,
that way.
exactly. Yeah.
Because clearly, like with like the outfits are iconic.
Hmm.
Because I do want to mention that Ruth Carter, who's known for doing costumes for the
Oh,
Black Panther
okay.
movies,
Oh,
she did the
really?
costumes for this
Ah,
movie.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Absolutely. Because I remember, like, do you watch Real Housewives of
My
Atlanta?
sisters did. I kind of saw like little clips here and there, but no, not full on.
So I can't remember what season
Hmm.
it was, but it was when Portia she was on. Because I remember, like, for like a Halloween
Yeah.
episode, like she dressed up as
Oh,
Nisi from
Portia,
BAPS.
Portia.
So
Oh, I know Portia.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, she did. Okay.
hmm
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
clearly, yeah, like with this movie, even though it may not be like the best, like quality
Hmm.
wise, but at least for many people,
It was still,
it's
yeah.
significant.
Yeah, the fact that
Absolutely.
they're still doing a costume on it, that's amazing. Like Halloween costume and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And also too, like I want to
Hmm.
mention like the restaurant scene when the girls arrive with Mr. Blakemore, like
Yeah.
the waiters trying to
Yeah,
get
to
them
their
to their table, but they keep like running
all the
into
celebrities. Yeah.
celebrities. And it's funny that like the waiter, I think he's German,
Okay.
like gets
Yeah,
frustrated with the girls.
it's
Yeah.
true. And the way they're like, "Oh, but we love you." I'm like, typical, like, non-favorites people. Like, I feel like fans this day, I guess that's what they do, but it was really funny how they're just
hmm
approaching, no boundaries, no like safe zone. They're just like going at it like this is a one in a lifetime. I'm not gonna lose this moment, and that was what they were doing.
Yeah, because I'll be
Yeah.
honest, if I see like a celebrity I like, I'd probably
Oh,
react the same way. Probably not to that
yeah.
extent how they do in the movie,
Hmm.
but for sure. And I do want to get into the cameos in this
Hmm.
movie. So I did not recognize everybody, but from what I
Oh,
recall,
yeah.
here are some. Yeah, they were great cameos, by the
Yeah.
way. So I do want to. Yeah, so the ones that stood out to me. So Dudley D. Moore, who's known for creating the Dolomite franchise, like he
Hmm.
cameoed as Nate at the
Hmm.
beginning. He complained about the burnt
Yep.
toast to
Yep.
Nisi, if you
Yeah.
remember that scene. Also, to Bernie Mac in the same scene where
Yes.
he
Oh,
played their boss, Mr.
yeah. I was when
Johnson.
I saw him, I'm
He,
like, my heart, R.I.P. That was legit what I said when it came
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. Also, to Phase on Love, he was at the Gold Tooth
Hmm.
Bar where he was talking to a woman
I don't
there
think
that
I
he
saw him.
encountered.
Like, I didn't recognize that person. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eh,
Yeah, and also too with people that play themselves. You have LL
oh
Cool
yeah.
J. He was at the
I love
airport,
I
obviously.
love how at the end they like keep licking your lips. And everybody who knows LL Cool J and grew up watching LL Cool J understood that statement. It was really gold. Like
Mm-hmm.
the way they like, oh yeah, keep licking your lips. We love you. We're like, yep, that's him, all right.
Mm-hmm. There's also too, there was Heavy D. He was at the restaurant
Oh.
and he was part of that whole subplot
Hmm.
with Nisi auditioning for the video dance
Okay.
girl of the
Yeah,
world, which obviously failed. But
those girls. So.
and that, yeah, absolutely. And then there was Leon. He was at the restaurant. He was the one
Yes.
where Nisi like jumped
Hmm.
on him. And then lastly, there was Dennis Rodman, like during the end
Oh yeah,
credits when the girls had
full
their
on like
hair
yeah.
salon.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, did you enjoy the cameos
I
yourself?
enjoyed like the LL Cool J one.
Mm-hmm.
Few of them, the the person that you said at the restaurant, those two, but a lot of them I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it took me a minute to realize who it was, but like yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
really good. Yeah, the cameos were definitely needed. It made up for the movie for sure.
Yeah, and since the movie's set in Beverly
Yeah,
Hills, obviously you're gonna run
true.
into
Yeah,
celebrities. So,
they had to make it look realistic, you know, which was good.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also too, I do want to
Hmm.
mention the soundtrack. It has a cool soundtrack. For me, like my favorite ones was obviously with Nisi and Ali's song Forever, like every time when they're
Mm,
dancing to that
yeah.
song. And and then also to Good Life by Inner City that was played during the shopping montage because that's a
Okay.
fun song.
I might not have noticed that
And I think
song.
yeah, and then lastly, "Love Is Shining Down on Me" by Robin S. That was played during the end credit scene when the girls are opening their hair salon
Okay.
slash
Yeah,
restaurant.
which is a
Yeah,
little bit bizarre, but you know, it's still crazy idea to be how you can have hair with food, but who can complain about that, right?
yeah, absolutely. What about your? Did you enjoy the soundtrack for the
I
movie?
enjoyed I'll say to be honest, like it's one of those things where the music is playing in the background, but I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
notice it as much. Like it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Pretty Woman when she was going shopping, they had that music going on, but you don't really pay attention to the soundtrack. I honestly I didn't. And I know like there was a
Mm-hmm.
part where it was too loud that's when we get to the dislikes and I'll talk about that because
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. And I think for me, like a last point I have for
Mhm.
highlights is yeah, the chemistry between Halle Berry and Natalie
Yeah.
Desselle because I think I love how they have their banter at times where they go back and
Mhm.
forth. But at the end of the day, they support each
Yeah.
other. Like most notably during like the fight scene, like when they're fighting a masked
Oh
Antonio during
yes,
like
with the
the
whole
break
that was
in.
funny too. That's not how he'll punch.
Yeah, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's just hilarious that he was essentially very defeated, like when the police take
Yes,
him to the
yeah.
car. Like it's like he could barely stand up. So
True. Yeah, the cast definitely were very favorable. Like I enjoyed the cast. Like it was a good pick of like actors and actresses for sure. Hmm.
absolutely. So is there anything else you want to add for the
Um,
highlights?
doo-doo. I think I actually we already I said most of what I thought about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any more. No, not yeah, not so far everything have been said, yeah. We'll just yeah.
Okay. All right, let's get into the lowlights. So, for me, one of my main
Mm-hmm.
critiques is the fact that obviously, with Isaac is scheming to extort Mr.
Mm-hmm.
B for whatever reason, and then, but the thing is that with Mr. B, like he knows that Nisi is not
Yeah.
related to Lily, but decides to went along with
Mm-hmm.
it. What?
I know. Yep.
Like, what is
I know it's a
this?
good thing and a bad thing at the same time because I know I put that in my like, but yes, I understand your part. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's even from the start when they even approached the girls. I was like, what are they doing in day and age or ever? You don't even go in a stranger's car. You don't even know what was going to happen. And I was like, in my head, watching
mm-hmm.
that scene, I was like, okay, good luck getting kidnapped. That's a perfect way of going in a stranger's, yes, it's a limo or whatever. But how do you know? And they're giving you
Yeah,
10,000 saying there's a music video? Like, really? Like they really portray
yeah,
these girls as like airheads, like don't have no clue of anything. They went to LA, did their performance, failed, and I felt like all morals went out of the door. And they're like, you know what?
yeah.
Whoever comes up, approach us and gives us a job, we'll take it. Which is a little bit, I don't know. I didn't like that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I just wondered though, like, did he decide to go along with it because they make him happy, or did he want to expose Isaac? I have
I
no
felt like
clue
it
because.
was more of because as they said, he actually was in love with the one black woman who was like the
Mm-hmm.
help, and I felt like just
Yeah,
having that connection with a group of blacks all over again kind of brought him joy, or maybe reminiscing about the past. I felt like it was more his happiness towards them, but at the same time it's more he was trying to kill two birds with one stone, right? So it's like, why not? I can get my nephew while still enjoying myself. That's how I saw it because
yeah,
he, although like we saw like the idea of what the nephew was trying to do, like scamming the uncle and all that stuff, but just him just having the idea that he already knew everything, all his plans. So it definitely showed that he was trying to get him found out, and through the girls was just an easier way. So the nephew pretty much helped him in his plan with his lawyer. So yeah.
yeah. But it's just how they went about in the
Yeah,
movie just felt random.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
it's like, why would you just agree with that? You already know you could have just confronted him. And that's what I'm saying. The movie was just prolonged to an extent where it could have just ended in different parts, but hey, that's how the script was written. Yeah.
yeah. And also too, like going along with Isaac, I felt like his motivation to extort Blakemore could have been fleshed out more for me,
Hmm.
because maybe they could have showed that he was somehow
Yeah.
mistreated or maybe neglected by Mr. Blakemore, because it just didn't make sense for him to extort
Yeah, because
him for
the way they
money.
showed their relationship, I did not even had an idea he hated his Mr. Blackmore that much. Because it looked like he cared
Yeah,
and everything. Like, oh yeah, he's dying. I just needed you guys to just pretend to like help him out. From his point of view, it looked like, oh, he's such a thoughtful person. But later on, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
that's how. So I guess you can say it's all greed comes into place when you're you know even though you want to help someone out, but with money and greed, it
Mm-hmm.
takes over, depending
Mm-hmm.
on how strong a personality is. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also too, I felt that with Isaac, he could have gave Nisi some info on Lily than just hanging her out to dry every time Blakemore
But
asked her about
I felt like
Lily.
he couldn't because he had no idea either. I felt like um the limited information he had was, yeah, my uncle or had a girl he was in love with, and that's it. And I felt that's the only thing he knew. So what information was he going to give them when he had no clue as well? Because if he did, he would have realized at the end, as we watch later, she had no daughters, right? So if he actually had those information, he would have actually realized that my plan is actually stupid. you know?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, he could have just made something up. Like, even though like the girls would have believed it, like
Hmm.
he obviously would not have believed it, right? So, like, it could have been more
Yeah.
believable with that
I
part for me. So,
True, but he was focusing on more of getting rid of them at the end, right? So the less they know, the better, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Like, it just did
Yeah.
not make sense for me.
A lot
But
of things they make sense.
so yeah, and I felt like for me, like there were scenes that were missing. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Like for example, so during the whole break-in
Hmm.
scene, when Antonio was revealed to be like the thief,
Yeah.
whatever, he asks Isaac to help him out,
Yeah.
which obviously fails. And then, like, I guess we're supposed to suspect, oh, Isaac, is involved,
Hmm.
whatever. But that's never mentioned again until like Blakemore meets his
Yeah.
lawyer, where they mention like, "Oh, thank God Isaac has has not gone too
Hmm.
far, and he's trying to extort you through the paparazzi photos he took." So I'm just running like, wait, like something's
Yeah,
missing here. So,
definitely. I thought, like, as I said earlier, sleeping and waking up and trying to rewind, I thought I was missing some scenes and I was like, oh, when did this happen? What happened here? Like, did I miss it? Did I not watch this? Like, what's going on? You're right. There were a lot of, I don't know if you call it cliffhangers or I don't know. It was
mhm,
very suspenseful, even at the end too. Um, during her reading the will, like the whole loud music and not knowing what he actually wrote for these girls. Yes, at the end they showed what they actually got from him from the will, but it was really, I don't know. It was annoyed. I was annoyed by it because
yeah, yeah, I'm right
yeah,
there
I was like,
with
what
you.
is he
The
saying? Like, you can't just have a soundtrack over the main important part of the whole movie and then at the end showed us
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, the girls end up having their restaurant and all, but it doesn't make sense to me. It's the same with the whole Isaac and not knowing that they were partners in crime or whatever. But yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, I wondered though, like with the lawyer
Hmm.
Tracy, how does she know that Nisi and Miki are involved? Because if I were her, I would suspect like anybody. Like I don't trust anybody
Yeah,
except for my
true.
clients.
I felt like maybe again, once again, it's a story that did not let the viewers know, but it could be as we noticed, she was already talking to Mr. Blackmore, and I felt like maybe that information was already given that oh these girls are just trying to like portray to be the granddaughter of somebody that was in love with. I think she mainly knew the base of the story and once again, just
Hmm.
because her client was going with it, I felt like as a lawyer, she just went along with it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And also too, I wondered like where is Lily? Since it revolves around her,
Yeah, they
because it
never.
seems like it's implied
Hmm.
it seems like it's implied that she died,
I
maybe,
think
but we don't know for
there was a
sure.
when he
So
was explaining. I think they said he was forced by his family to get married, Mr. Blackmore to get married, right? And it seemed like he
yeah.
moved away and then came back. That's the idea I got. I don't know if I missed that, but the way Isaac was explaining was like, oh yeah, he was in love with this person, but the family didn't like approve, so he got forced to marry, and and then after that he lived with his family, moved on and everything. So I think it was more of like a
Hmm.
distance, like he moved on, she did her own thing, and then maybe later on in life he found out she passed away, maybe, I don't know, try to reconnect with her. They made the viewers really do a lot of thinking and hoping throughout the movie, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's weird
Hmm.
for sure. And we need to talk about Antonio. So when we first see him, like he approaches the girls like during their
Hmm.
audition, and like it gives them like the offer for the fake
Yes,
music video for
yeah.
10,000, and they're like, okay, and then he disappears when the girls arrive,
Yeah.
which is off.
I actually made that comment. I'm like, where's the guy that brought you? Where's the
Yeah,
driver? I'm like, are you
yeah.
guys just gonna randomly walk up to someone's door and knock and say, "Oh, by the way, your driver told us this is the house we should." It was very weird, and the whole storyline. I'm actually rich, and I'm only here. Like, it didn't make sense to me. I don't know. I don't know if he was
I don't think
flirting or that was his way of flirting with who was Mickey Denzel, but it was confusing.
Yeah, because I don't think he was actually rich. I think he just told her that to like like woo
Yeah.
her and all that stuff. So, but also too, like, is he supposed to be like the help
He,
for
from
Mr.
what I got,
Blakemore?
he's the driver. He should have been the driver. I don't know. That's what I got from
But
it.
but we but we don't see scenes of him driving
Yeah.
like Mr.
So maybe
Blakemore.
he's with Isaac, maybe? Driver for Isaac? It was a one time.
That part is
Yeah.
unclear.
No,
It's
you're right. I'm trying to
unclear.
think now. I'm like, maybe you see, this is how the movie made me feel because you're just like assuming
Yeah,
throughout of like what's really happening. But yeah.
yeah. And I thought it was hilarious that when he's romancing
Oh,
Mickey, he's wearing
yeah.
gloves. And then when she asks him about it, it's like, oh, because your skin is so
How would
soft.
you know that when you're wearing gloves?
Yeah. Plus, didn't he touch her
Yeah,
before this
true.
scene? Like,
And like the whole idea how clueless Mickey was, it's like, oh, the gift is in here. This is the code. And then she's like, oh, really? Let me open it for you. And your fingerprint is on there and he has gloves on. You know?
yeah,
It's like if
yeah.
you actually open that, you just helped him rob the main person that's helping you guys live at his house. But it was it just kept
Mm-hmm.
on showing how clueless these girls are. Like, I wish they portrayed them a little bit better. And the whole, because at the start of the movie, the stereotypical like look saying, I don't know, it was very the ghetto side of like, oh yeah, these are what black girls should look like, and this is it. They're struggling, they're working hard, they're going through jobs, and then when they get to LA, the typical Western look of them being a princess is taking off all the what they would have been their own personality, like them showing their personality through their outfit, and then that got changed because to the Western area or LA, that's not appropriate. I don't know. Although
Yeah,
it was a little bit, yeah.
yeah,
It's like, why change them? If you want them to feel like princess, you can just like woo them, like, treat them to dinner like what you were doing, but why change the whole visage of like their outfit and everything? I thought that was a little bit, too much. Although, yeah.
yeah.
Although the nails did have to
And
go though.
absolutely. And speaking of
Yeah.
princesses, what do you think about the title of this movie?
The Beautiful American Princess.
Yeah.
um if if you want to go in depth with what each meaning was, I guess they're saying like beautiful as in they're beautiful in their own way. They were Black Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
the princess part is a little bit tricky, as I said, because like I didn't
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
really they did as princesses. So typical, they're just saying anybody who gets famed or get a rich person to treat them well, that's a princess lifestyle. I don't know. It's a little bit
Yeah.
off because you can be a princess in different ways, but they were just showing like how, to me, I felt like the girls, even though they were saying don't get money cloud your judgment or whatever, but at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
they needed money. They were broke girls that were struggling, and yes, they ripped the check or whatever, they still underneath needed money, right, to survive. And I don't know, the princess part is a little bit tricky for me. Yeah.
Yeah, because I wonder if it's supposed to be like more of a symbolic
Yeah.
reference. Because you know how like these days, like people like, oh, like you're a
Yeah.
queen and all that stuff. So I'm just wondering,
I don't think
is
it
it
was more
along?
towards that because I felt like it's more through their changing in the movie, like them being changed by this by Mr. Blackmore and getting the whole treatment of getting new clothes, getting new like, seeing LA, Beverly and all that stuff. I felt like that's the part of the princess, but it was not really towards like, oh yeah, they were already princesses to start with. if if that was it,
Mm-hmm.
then I understand like, oh yeah, they were Black American princess because they knew what they wanted to do. They knew their goals. The girls knew their goals and they were going towards it if that's what they were trying to go. But just the ending, the princess part
Mm-hmm.
is just, I don't know, it doesn't fully make a understanding for me. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you
Mhm.
on that. So I think like you briefly mentioned this. So this was after the whole break-in scene where Mr. Blakemore he gives the girls like a check. I think it's
Mhm.
$50,000 each or
Yes,
something.
yeah.
So they rip it up, and then Nisi's like, "Oh, we're here because we
Yeah.
want to
And I'm like,
be."
you're
I'm
lying.
like,
I'm
"What?"
like, girl, you came here. In my head, I'm like, you all came here to do an audition to get a quick bucks. You signed up to this guy to
Yeah.
trick him for 10,000. And now when you actually have
Mhm.
money in your hand, you're like, oh no, we're not here. It's that because I guess they're trying to show the guilt that they felt, and that's what changed their mind in some ways, but it was a little bit hard to believe because that's not really why you're here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I thought that was just
Mhm.
hilarious to me, and also too, I think it's like later, towards the end. I think Mickey mentions that, oh, like we're gonna go back home with no money and all
Yes,
that
yeah.
stuff, and then Nissa's like maybe, she's like maybe or maybe
Mhm.
not. I'm like, does she know something that we don't
Yeah, I
know?
think Miggy
Like,
was just more realistic than most of the cast and the character that was being
yeah.
portrayed because she actually understood why she was there. And that's why she's like, "Are you really ripping that check? Like, girl, didn't you notice why we started this? The whole reason why we're here." But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
lucky for them, it ended up being what, like the positive way. He gave them more than what they expected, but I don't know. It was a little bit.
Did they deserve it? Yeah, did they
Um,
deserve it? Because for me, I don't think they
no,
deserve it at all with the money.
yeah, I get what they were saying. They were tricked as well, but you agree to it. Like, you should have come clean because they had many times to have told this guy that, oh, by the way, we're not really granddaughters of this person. We're just here because we wanted quick bucks. Like 10,000 was offered. Even when he asked them, oh, did he give you money? Did he? No one didn't even say anything. So it's like they were still trying to cover
Mm-hmm.
for themselves, hoping that it will benefit them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to mention that with Nisi, I feel like she goes too hard on Ellie in terms of having
Mhm.
lack of ambition. Because do we actually know for sure that he has lack of ambition? Because we know that he wants to start
Oh
what he
yeah.
dubs a page a
Mhm.
cab luxury car service, but we don't actually see him like being lazy to
Yeah.
justify Nisi's points on Ellie. Because they could have shown an example of that than just say that he lacks
I
ambition.
think, yeah, I know what you're talking about that because I felt like it was more of um her goal. Like she wanted her person or her boyfriend to be at a certain level. And yes, she was not seeing that in him, so she was, in her definition, that is lazy. That's what I got from that.
Yeah.
Because every
Mm-hmm.
time like the time when they were late to pick them up from the restaurant, the excuse they gave was, oh, we were busy doing this, trying to get some cars. Like he was actually going out doing his business, but it just showed that with no support for them, they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna struggle as well. Like they don't have the money, the means, or connection So of course his business is not striving because he has no person that has can put like an investment or whatever, you know? So I felt like it was more of her
Right.
ideology of how she wants a boyfriend to be rather than seeing him for who he is because he was working hard from what the
Yeah.
movie portrayed. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like was it necessary for Allie and James to pick them up from work?
Well, to be I feel like it's the typical like puppy love where it's like your girl picks you up from work and like I think that's what it was. But them giving them a hard time for being late. You're grown women. You can walk home yourself. It's two of you guys. Unless the
Yeah.
neighborhood was
Yeah.
bad or I understand maybe a male figure
Yeah.
would have been great to walk beside them, but apart from that,
Mhm.
like because they did have someone approach them, right? So they came. Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe that's the idea. They needed someone to help them go home because of how bad the environment is, but overall I don't think they needed them to pick them up.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
here. So that's all what I have to say about this category. Anything else you want to add for the lowlights?
um the loud music, the fact that I couldn't hear the will because that really annoyed me. Honestly, I really wanted to know what was being said. I guess it's the nosy part of being a
Yeah.
viewer, like watching it. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, they could have. I felt like them being truthful and coming out, being honest to the Mr. Blackmore would have been earlier than later. But overall,
Mhm.
yeah, that's all I have.
Mhm. All right. So we could get into the trivia section.
Ooh.
So there wasn't a lot of fun facts that I could
Yeah.
find for this movie. So here's just a few that I was able to
Hmm.
find. So this movie was included on Roger Ebert, who was a notable critic back in the
Hmm.
day. It was included in his most
Oh,
hated list.
I understand that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like apart from the humor here and there, I do understand because I actually did not give it a good rating either.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to Halle Berry, she was in the midst of her divorce
Oh,
from David Justice during the filming of this
oh
movie,
wow.
which she said she it helped her deal with the depression she had from that public split.
Wow. That's oh my gosh. Well, well now knowing that, she tried her best. That's how you know she's a good actress because she didn't put
Mhm.
personal with like work, she separate the two.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, for some people it would not be easy
Exactly,
to do
yeah.
so. So also too, the screenwriter Troy
Hmm.
Bayer, she was disappointed by the final cut of the movie and believed that quote her words had not been honestly made onto the screen. She explained that this was the first time Robert Townsend had directed a film that he had not written. She used her earnings from this movie to direct her first film.
So the lady also the black woman that did directed the movie. Say that.
Yeah, and she was and to add that she
Yeah,
played the
she was the
lawyer
lawyer. Yeah,
Tracy
yeah,
in the
yeah.
movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
hmm
interesting. And you
Yeah.
already said earlier that was the first movie for Halle Berry, right?
I think it's her first comedy. It's not
First
her first
comedy.
movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And so with this point about with the writer being upset,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not far fetched to be honest because I have been there because essentially like if you write a script, it's probably a fantastic
Yeah.
script and then you get the director, they want to add their ideas that probably does not mesh well with the script and therefore you get a final product which is completely off from what
Mm-hmm.
you wrote. It seems like that's the situation in
Okay.
this case, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible. It would have
Yeah.
had great potentials for sure. Yeah, by
hmm
what you just said too,
And
like it seems like some maybe few things, how certain storylines didn't follow through. So it could be maybe they took some lines
hmm
out that made it very vague. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
possibly. And this is a final fun fact. I just found this on
Mm-hmm.
Wikipedia, so take it as you will. So apparently, yeah. So apparently, a stage play version for this movie is in the works from
Oh,
producer and playwright Jacarius Johnson, who's known for reviving, I guess, movies into plays such as Two Can Play That Game and New Jack City.
okay.
Interesting. And the play apparently was originally supposed to open in May 2020,
Mhm.
but it got delayed due to the
Pandemic, yeah.
pandemic, and also too with the original star Natalie Desselle. She was supposed to reprise her role as Mickey, but unfortunately she
Yeah.
passed away due to
Oh,
cancer. Yeah.
that's sad.
So apparently now, like, the play is gonna open in October
Okay.
2023 with Angela White, aka Black China, as Nisi,
Oh,
and Inaya Lewis as Mickey.
oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't think anybody would want to do a
absolutely.
remake of it, but okay.
Yeah, we shall see what happens
Yeah.
there. And yeah, and lastly, I usually ask this
Mhm.
question: should this movie be rediscovered? So,
Um,
what do you think, Amy?
I'm kind of like, I rediscovered it when you told me to watch it. And
Mm-hmm.
rewatching it, I think a lot of people, if you have already seen it, I do not recommend you rewatching it because that's just going to ruin your whole childhood or whenever you tend to watch it the first time. But there are some
Mm-hmm.
potentials. There's still humor and everything. So if you like that, what would he say? I guess straightforward type humor, then or cliche or
Mm-hmm.
repetitive like type humor, then yes, watch it. But it was a good cast. But I honestly would not say, oh, I'm gonna rewatch this in like few years from now. No, in my opinion.
Yeah. So for me, I would say it's one of those movies where you have to turn your brain off
Yeah,
to enjoy
definitely.
it. Because, like I said, like, it definitely has flaws. It definitely has a
Hmm.
convoluted plot and all this stuff. But I would say, like, it has its funny
Yeah,
moments.
which
So
yeah, it does. It does
yeah.
definitely. But yeah, I guess I overthink the way I watch movies now. It's just like I'm watching every single thing, criticizing it, and a lot of the stuff that happened in this movie in 2023, those would not be acceptable. Like, you know how now the new generation is just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said this in this movie. I felt like that would have been one of those movies where they're like, oh wow, did they really did that too? Is that the stereotype they're using? Like, I felt like girls would just like, or kids these days would not approve of the movie. I don't know. It's not something they would have picked and watched, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
for
good
sure.
though. It's good.
So yeah, absolutely. So that pretty much concludes this episode of the podcast. So, Amy, where could find you?
um, Instagram at Jane Fashion Pics. Um, blog janefashionpics.blog, so you guys can read my blogs. I do mini blogs here and there on fashion, on different things, travel, or whatever I feel, whatever my mind tells me to. It's one of those things. But overall, yeah, just me doing me.
Absolutely. So you could find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Linktree at Numphy Malloy. You can find the podcast on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Linktree at RD Movies Pod. On Spotify, you can answer the feature question, poll, and rate the podcast. For Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review and rate the podcast. You can submit questions, comments, and suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com, or you can send a short voice message on Spotify for podcasters at RD Movies Pod to be featured on the after show, which will air after the season finale. All the links to the stuff will be available in the description. So, Amy, is there any final notes you want to say about the movie before we sign
um,
off?
Not about the movie, just saying that your podcast is amazing. I enjoyed it. Like, I was a little bit nervous at first, but definitely would it's something that I'll definitely follow. Like, I don't usually do a lot of podcasts, but this was actually engaging and it was interesting. It was really fun.
Absolutely. Thank
You're welcome.
you so much. And thank you for being a
Oh,
great
you're
guest.
welcome.
So,
Hopefully, we can do another
absolutely.
one.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, that pretty much concludes this episode of the podcast, and we'll catch you on the next
Bye.
one.